Welcome to Arizona Sun-Times Sunday for October 9th, 2022. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of the Arizona Sun-Times. You can find us on the web at arizonasuntimes.com. That's arizonasuntimes.com. We're a fast-growing digital news site where we report the facts of local political news from a constitutional conservative worldview. Well, midterm elections will be held just 4 weeks and 2 days from today on November 8th, and conservatives who support parental choice in education scored a major victory here in Arizona last week. The victory was so profound, it now puts Arizona at the forefront in the country when it comes to K through 12 educational reform. As we reported in last week's edition of Arizona Sun-Times Sunday, Arizona is one of 23 states where citizens have the power to repeal legislation through what's called a veto referendum. In Arizona, any petition calling for the repeal of a law that receives the verified valid signatures of 5% of the votes cast in the most recent gubernatorial election must be placed on the ballot in the next election. The number of valid signatures required to place a veto referendum currently on the ballot in Arizona is 118,823. Now, earlier this year, the Arizona State Legislature passed a bill, HB 2853, that Governor Doug Ducey signed into law that expands empowerment scholarship accounts to all children in grades 1 through 12 who would qualify to receive over $6,500 per year for private school, homeschooling, learning pods, tutoring, or any other kinds of educational services that would best fit that student's needs. Kindergartners, by the way, would receive $4,000. These ESAs differ from traditional school vouchers, which can only be used at private schools. Previously, the program was limited to children in failing public schools or public schools that were not able to meet the special needs of those children. Already, more than 11,000 Arizona students have signed up to participate in this program this year. The legislature passed a similar bill back in 2017 that Governor Ducey signed into law, which would have accomplished the same thing. But a group of unions and left-wing activists wanted to stop that 2017 law from going into effect, so they got enough signatures to place a veto referendum about the law on the ballot in 2018. Arizona voters did, in fact, veto that bill by a 65% to 35% margin. Now let's fast forward to 2022. Again, the legislature passed a bill and it was signed into law by Governor Ducey that would expand empowerment scholarship accounts to all children. A left-wing group called Save Our Arizona Schools then collected signatures on a petition to place that bill up for a veto referendum on the 2024 ballot. A week ago Friday, that left-wing group turned those petitions in to the Secretary of State, and they made a big deal about it, claiming they had 141,714 signatures on the Stop Voucher Expansion veto referendum, which would be more than 20,000 above the number of signatures they needed to get on the ballot. Now, the process moved on to Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, who also happens to be the Democrat nominee for governor on the ballot November 8th. As a reminder, she's running against former TV anchor and GOP gubernatorial nominee Kari Lake. So it's the Secretary of State's job to verify that these are all valid signatures. Remember, there are 11,000 K-12 students signed up for the program waiting to get funded for this academic year. Now, their funding was put on hold while Katie Hobbs says she was going to take the full 20 days allowed by law to verify those signatures. The very first step in the process was to determine if, in fact, those 140,000 plus signatures were actually the number submitted. That probably should have taken the Secretary of State's office a couple of hours to determine. But nothing was heard until Monday from the Secretary of State office. Meanwhile, the Goldwater Institute, suspecting that petition count may have been amiss, filed a FOIA request to see the petitions submitted by the left-wing opponents of the scholarship accounts. They got the raw documents with the petitions back, and they counted up the signatures, and they discovered, hey, it's only about 85,000 signatures submitted. That's just submitted. It was well below the 118,000 plus needed to get on the ballot. So they called on Secretary of State Hobbs to make an announcement to that effect. And several Republican state legislators also called on Secretary of State Hobbs to do just that. On Wednesday, Governor Ducey held a rally with parents, calling on Hobbs to state the veto referendum had failed. Well, late last Friday afternoon, finally, Secretary of State Hobbs' office released a statement which confirmed the petition drive had failed. Arizona's Republican gubernatorial nominee, Kari Lake, blasted Hobbs, her Democrat opponent, for taking a week to reject the referendum to stop Arizona's universal empowerment scholarship account law from going into effect, despite evidence already showing the motion failed. Here's what she said, quote, "It is shameful that Katie Hobbs aligned herself with the radical union's effort to permanently trap Arizona's kids in failing schools, then hung Arizona's parents out to dry for a week by suspending the school choice program. Despite overwhelming evidence, the referendum failed to get enough signatures." This was a statement that Kari Lake provided to us at the Arizona Sun-Times. She went on to say, quote, "Katie Hobbs is on the side of corrupt, bloated school bureaucracies, but I will never stop fighting to give Arizona's parents more choice in their children's schools and more control over their children's education." A letter from Arizona Secretary of State's office was released on Friday that confirmed the organization behind the referendum, Save Our Schools Arizona, did not submit enough signatures. Here's what they said, quote, "While review of the petition sheets and the signatures thereon is ongoing, the Secretary of State's office has completed the statutorily prescribed review on enough sheets and signatures to determine that the number of petition signatures eligible for verification will fail to meet the constitutional minimum of 118,823 signatures. Yeah, this was according to the Secretary of State's office. Hobbs did not sign the letter herself, but she tweeted a statement with a similar message. The Arizona Sun-Times reached out to the Secretary of State's office for more about the signature counting and why it took Hobbs a week to reject the referendum, but we did not receive an answer. In response to the news, Arizonans and other organizations that favor parental choice for schools celebrated the victory. Jenny Clark, the founder of Love Your Schools, said doors are now open for all Arizona kids. Quote, "The parents have spoken. They want education option for their kids. The now 12,000 students who pre-applied for an ESA will now have access to this incredible program. Before today, unnecessary barriers to the program limited too many Arizona children. Now the door has been thrown open for all Arizona kids," she said in a statement given to the Arizona Sun-Times. Moreover, Christina Curso, who's a leader of the Decline to Sign Arizona movement, which opposed the petition efforts, said this begins a new day for Arizona. Quote, "I am grateful to the parents of Arizona who stopped this referendum campaign and allowed this law to come to life. As a longtime ESA parent, I could not be more thrilled to see thousands of new parents benefiting from this program." And the Goldwater Institute also, which played a significant part in this success story, had this to say. Matt Bellenberg, the Director of Education Policy at the Goldwater Institute, said, quote, "This is a monumental victory for students not only in Arizona, but also across the nation. Lawmakers in every other state now know it's possible to defeat the radical teachers' unions and make students the priority of our education system once again, end quote. The Arizona Department of Education also updated after the Secretary of State's rejected the referendum. Over the past week, the Arizona Department of Education had all applications in the universal category on hold. However, that changed on Friday, and the Department of Education will begin approving these applications, although they warn the process may take months to complete due to a large number of applications. Well, that's it for that story. We'll have more when we get back. This is the Arizona Sun-Times Sunday program. Welcome back. Governor Doug Ducey announced last Thursday that Arizona's surging economy has paved the way for an historic flat income tax rate to come into effect a year ahead of schedule. Beginning on January 1st of 2023, the state of Arizona will implement a flat income tax rate of 2.5%, the lowest rate for states that have a flat income tax in the nation. 7 states, Alaska, Florida, Nevada, Tennessee, Texas, and Wyoming, have no state income tax at all on earned wages or dividends and interest income. New Hampshire has no income tax on earned wages, but taxes in dividends and interest income. Washington has no tax on earned wages, but taxes capital gains. Currently, Arizona has a graduated income tax that increases from 2.59% to 4.5%. The new 2.5% flat tax was scheduled to phase in over 3 years, but was advanced due to Arizona's economic strength. The flat tax plan was part of the 2021 state budget. Arizona needed a general fund revenue of $12.8 billion to trigger the rate early, which is what happened according to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee and the Governor's Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting. A joint memo from the groups revealed that in fiscal year 2022, Arizona's general fund revenue was $16.7 billion, well exceeding that threshold. Other examples of Arizona's economic prowess include creating 400,000 jobs since 2015 and raising the rainy day fund to $1.4 billion, the highest in the state's history. Economists also forecast that Arizona will have a $4.4 billion budget surplus through 2024. Quote, "In Arizona, we believe you deserve to keep the money you earned. This tax relief keeps Arizona competitive and preserves our reputation as a jobs magnet and generator of opportunity," tweeted Governor Ducey. Quote, "It's no secret Arizona's economy is booming. Over the last 8 years, we've made responsible decisions to live within our means, reduce the burdensome government regulation, and lower taxes every year to ensure our state remains a great place to live." Ducey said that in a letter to Arizona's Department of Revenue. He added, quote, "It's time to deliver lasting tax relief to Arizona families and small businesses so they can keep more of their hard-earned money." The Tax Foundation reports a positive correlation between low or zero state income taxes and economic growth. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich filed another lawsuit against the Biden administration last week, challenging the president's authority to cancel student loan debt. Brnovich argued that it goes contrary to several recent Supreme Court decisions, striking down federal agencies' assertions of power never granted to them by Congress. The Biden administration intends to cancel via executive order $10,000 to $20,000 of student loan debt for people who make less than $125,000 to $250,000 annually for a married person filing jointly. In his lawsuit, Brnovich said, quote, "This loan cancellation is a naked handout by one administration and one party to favored political classes, college graduates, and those employed by the higher education industry, at the expense of taxpayers everywhere. The brief noted how even Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said last year that President Joe Biden does not have that authority, only Congress does. The Department of Education issued an opinion to then Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos in January 2021, reiterating this position. Even Biden himself questioned in February 2021 whether he had the authority to cancel student loan debt, unless it was a small amount, like $10,000, and White House officials clarified later that even the $10,000 reference required congressional approval. Biden justifies the debt cancellation that's proposed by invoking the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act of 2003, the HEROES Act. The lawsuit states that the HEROES Act, which was enacted in the wake of September 11, 2001, and the terrorist attacks on that day, was meant to relieve active duty personnel from bureaucratic constraints by waiving various administrative requirements, such as documentation requirements, and to provide grace periods to accommodate service in active operations. Its purpose was to provide the Secretary of Education with specific waiver authority to respond to war or other military operation or national emergency. When COVID-19 became a national epidemic in 2020, DeVos used that authority to set all federal student loan interest rates to zero and automatically enter borrowers into administrative forbearance, allowing them to defer payments without financial penalty. However, the lawsuit points out that the pandemic has ended. Biden now repeatedly asserts that the pandemic is over, yet he contends, as Brnovich points out in the complaint, that the pandemic is still a useful pretext to adopt policies that would otherwise be incontestably illegal. The brief noted that efforts to cancel student loan debt in Congress have failed. Evidence the debt cancellation plan is not related to COVID-19. The Office of Legal Counsel at the U.S. Department of Justice issued a memo that stated that the HEROES Act could be used for debt forgiveness if there was a correlation to COVID-19, but the complaint notes the Biden administration has not made that determination. The brief lists 5 ways that debt cancellation hurts Arizona, demonstrating why the Arizona Attorney General's office has the standing to sue. First, it hurts employers. Second, it hurts Arizona's state revenues, since it will take effect for 2022 and 2023 when it is not taxable due to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Third, it would harm the economy. Fourth, it hurts Arizona by increasing the state's cost of borrowing, since the federal government will need to borrow money. This competes with Arizona's ability to obtain good loan rates. And fifth and finally, law enforcement costs will increase, since it also increases the amount of consumer and felony fraud relating to student debt. We'll have more after this. Welcome back. Maricopa County has formed what it refers to as an, quote, election command center in hopes of combating what it calls election misinformation, adding that county officials will only allow credentialed journalists who they deem qualified to be present for 2022 election-related events. The Arizona Sun-Times has applied for credentials with Maricopa County officials. We'll let you know if they grant our request for credentials. A group of 6 elected officials plus elections and communications professionals have worked together to establish the, quote, 2022 Elections Command Center. This according to a press release from the county's office. Maricopa County became the focal point of electoral skeptics after the 2020 general election. Many of his supporters believe that former President Donald Trump won more votes than President Joe Biden. In the county's general election, the Arizona State Senate, in fact, conducted a review of the county's votes, finding what they called a number of irregularities. The command center will serve as a, quote, central hub of information for the weeks leading up to and following the November 8th general election. according to the press release. Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Ritzer added he hopes the office will clear up information during the general election. The county says that the Election Command Center will bring together communicators and subject matter experts from a few places, including the Elections Department, the Recorder's Office, County Manager's Office, and other county agencies. The announcement also said the county would begin hosting regular news conferences in October and November, but limit access to credentialed media of their choosing. Previous news conferences were disrupted by a partisan election correspondent shouting over other questions when he wasn't called on, this according to the county. The county says this command center will provide clear, consistent communication about voting deadlines and election processes to Maricopa County's more than 2.4 million eligible voters, outreach and response to local, national, and international media covering Arizona elections, quick and accurate response to mis, dis, and malinformation related to administration of elections in Maricopa County, updates and tabulations, and reporting of results following Election Day. That's our report for this edition of Arizona Sun-Times Sunday. Remember to visit our website, ArizonaSunTimes.com, every day for breaking local and state news stories. That's ArizonaSunTimes.com. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.